I think it's really easy these days to be confused about how best to make money with your drawing or your art, or to a certain degree, is it even possible? In my experience, yes, it is very possible. And while I don't think it's as easy as a lot of the quick money YouTube videos that you might have seen, I think that there are a lot of simple processes you can employ to make sure that you are heading down a career path that does make money. I think one of the major things that underpins this that I don't see talked about a lot in how to make money as an artist YouTube stuff is the idea of design, and how design really is at the key of the most accessible career paths as an artist that you can make. A lot of those are in the entertainment industry or as a professional working artist. In this video, I want to discuss this concept and how it relates to you being able to make either some money if you're not making any money, or again, how you can maybe clarify the role that this has in your career going forward. Let's get started. Okay, so just quickly, my name's Tim McBurney. I've been a working professional artist for 20 years, and I actually haven't made any money through any other means. I've never had another job, I've never had a plan B. Call it what you will. Maybe it's just sort of stupidity or ignorance. That's just kind of how I have done it. And I'm also a drawing teacher as a part-time hobby, and what I'm here to do is to help you master the craft of line and color illustration, to embrace the challenge of drawing, and to draw interesting things from your imagination. So this video really is mostly for those of you and those of us who want to sort of draw cool stuff from like comics or video games, and we're more interested in coming up with ideas and sort of drawing fairly representational things on a page, not quite so much about drawing portraits or other things that people consider art. And I think the good thing there is that there are a lot of good opportunities in those industries to make money as an artist. I think in this case, often that pathway is fairly easy, but there are frequently forces within the world that tend to not understand that a lot of these entertainment products that we consume are actually made up of people making them. And I think that information can get disseminated really early on when you're in school and that kind of thing. The classic example I often give is that, you'll have a teacher who's going to tell you that you can't make money drawing manga or something, while that same teacher buys their kid manga comics, right? It's kind of, there's a disconnect there about the method of production of entertainment. And I think while I don't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty of art versus design, because I think that is a tangled web of horrible sort of ethical, philosophical nonsense, the basic key here is that art is really sort of the things that we would create for ourselves, whereas design is where we have a functionality to the work that we're creating, and also that there's a brief involved. So there's a goal we're trying to achieve with our art. That really is the difference in my mind between the art versus design. And I think while art needs to be good and you need to build your ability to create good art, obviously, often the way that we actually make money in the most accessible way is to help out on projects, or help companies or other people or things make their project. And in those cases, we are using art, but more importantly, the thing that will tend to make you money is your ability to kind of insert yourself into that production chain and provide value within that production chain. I know that sounds sort of abstract, maybe if you haven't sort of been exposed to those kind of business concepts, but value is just where you actually create something that is helping people. And that's something that we can do with art. So anyway, that's the basic concept. Again, I don't want to delve too much into the ethics or the terminology between art versus design, but hopefully that gives you a quick idea about what I'm talking about. While I've never done any job that was an art, I certainly have gone many, many, many years not making, really any money at all. And I think a lot of it was just not understanding this concept. Again, being drawn into those dialogues about what is art, what is design, and what's important and what's not important, and should you sell out? Or, people, when I was sort of learning to do art, were often saying, oh, there's actually, more work in graphic design versus sort of art. It's a big concept, right? I think that the key there is just, it's easy to have your mind full of nonsense, right? Which doesn't actually relate to the core sort of functional way that we can make money as artists. And again, these paths are not for everyone. And I think there are also a lot of good opportunities to be an auteur artist today. But I think often the most obvious and simple way, if you are sort of watching this channel and you like the kind of stuff that I'm doing, and you probably like comics and video games and stuff, there's a lot of jobs in those industries. And not all of them are the most creative, high level, you're art directing the next AAA game. But in many, many cases, if you understand how you can use your art through design to, help those projects, then there are lots and lots of jobs available for you to do that sort of thing, and again, that might be something you want to do, or it's something you're already doing. But again, I think it's really important to understand that often, not just the way that we get a job, but the way we can, increase our value within that sort of job and maybe get paid more, or, move our way up those ladders. Those pathways are often through design, right? Understanding the production and how we can help production, and working on those skills and developing those skills. That's often the most important thing you can do, both early on and especially in the sort of beginning stages of your career. I think often when we start, we have art that is kind of okay, but the thing that's really lacking is both experience and a general concept of how someone is going to pay us to do that art, and how we sort of bridge the gap from here's stuff I've sort of been doing by myself, or, for a school project or something, and how do I kind of transition that to a situation where someone's actually paying me to do art. So let's look at a couple of examples. The first would be the idea of illustration. And again, this just illustrates, no pun intended, the point. And if you think about the product you're selling as an illustrator, it is sort of a finished image. But the value that you're actually providing, the thing that people are going to pay for, is that the image you're creating matches what they want. And the more you can understand that, the more money you'll make, basically. And the more value you can provide to the people who are making you that money as an artist, the more likely you are to get employed again. And again, to be able to be more useful, and the more useful you can be, the more people are likely to want to hire you, and the more you can probably charge. Again, it really is that simple. It's a very simple sort of business, economics lesson, right? And I know it does seem like often when I would hear people talking about that, it would feel like, but surely it can't be that simple with art, because art's more complicated and whatever. And again, all those things are just sort of narratives, right? At the end of the day, it is just a business. There is a market. We're buying and selling services, basically. And I think once you understand that, you can really, really overlay a lot of basic business ideas onto your artistic career, and use it to actually help you. And again, act as a bit of a guiding light if things do get complicated. So using our example of an illustrator, one of the things that you can consider as design in that situation that's going to help you is just your ability to understand not just how to create art, but how to create art to a brief, and how to engage in that brief throughout the creation process to make sure that the people who are paying you money are happy, right? And that they're sort of getting what you want. And that really is the difference between, art and design. In illustration, the example would be, well, the art would be you just make whatever image you want. And again, there are ways to sell that, but I think the easier way, the more accessible way, especially today when I think there is a big entertainment industry, is to understand, how to get better at that design process, to get better at understanding, okay, this is what someone else wants. This is the functional reason that they want it. And this is how I can best use my skills to help that person and get the best result. And I think there's a couple of traps that often pop up in the beginning, is that, again, making those things meet is actually quite tricky. Figuring out going from you just being able to create whatever you want and sort of maximizing what you are really good at versus taking someone else's idea and then executing on that, but also managing to figure out where is the overlap between what I'm good at, what I want to do, what I'm passionate about, and what they need. And I think, again, building your ability to do that is really one of the major building blocks of, getting a good career and becoming sort of employable as an artist. And I think in the beginning that can be very challenging, but again, using illustration as an example, that's where we get good at doing our thumbnails, our black and white roughs, using a full sort of process that really allows other people to, step by step follow us along the way. Again, this is sort of antithetical to the idea of art where we're expressing ourselves. But again, the trick is that really, really good illustrators do both. And that is, I guess, my main point with this video, is to make you understand that, again, the goal is to get really good at both the art and the design aspect to the point where you're not struggling with them. And I think at that point, you will find you're able to both find people who like you to do the things that you actually want to do, and you're able to maximize your own creative expression through the brief and the functional things that people are needing. And again, I feel like that's when you find and you see people who have really, personal, unique sort of styles as illustrators, and people want them to work for them, because it's not just that they're, able to do that really good, emotive, personal work, but they're able to kind of figure out how what a client wants fits in with their vision and then create something truly amazing, right? Again, that's the best sort of example where we sort of see a good interplay of art and design, but it is the design that really makes you the money. Now, if you want to hear a little bit more about this, I do have a free illustration mini workshop, which you can check out. Again, link will be in the description. In that, I talk about a lot of these concepts as it relates to thinking about professional work and how I go about sort of thinking about how to set up my illustration process so that it best fits within a professional working environment. I also share a few little sort of tips about my career and my journey as an artist and a lot of the mistakes I made. So if you're interested in this idea, go check out that free illustration mini workshop. It's got a lot of extra advice about career and how to create finished, polished illustrations. Now, illustration is something that we really can think of as being more close to art than something like concept design. And again, this is where we are designing things for the entertainment industry or within the entertainment industry. And by the entertainment industry, I just mean, video games, movies, animation, all of that stuff where people are watching Game of Thrones, they're reading comics, they're playing video games, and there's a lot of work that artists do in those projects, and the artists get paid. And again, the thing that you really have to understand is that the value you often provide is in designing something in that instance. So as a concept designer, I think that's one of the, it's not easy, but it is one of the easier ways to kind of get a decent sort of nice paying job as an artist these days. And it's still very challenging, but I think what people imagine is that you see the top flight artists in the entertainment industry and we aspire to them because their art is amazing, and we kind of imagine that it is the art that is the thing that sort of got them there. And I think often sort of that is the case, but again, it really is understanding that that art is done within a production pipeline and that there is a lot of functionality to the art that is created there, and that the art that those people who are really, really good are actually often doing for the majority of their actual working day is not that good. It's often just production work. It's like very, very simple jobs that artists do to make the game or the animation or the film better. And there are also a lot more production level jobs that, don't really ever need that kind of, highest level sort of, fan favorite, artist quality. And that, again, I'm working in these industries and I see people working alongside me, and there's plenty of people who are employed and, their art is good. And even, it might be really good, but often the work that we're doing is design based, and it's about problem solving, understanding visual language, shape design, shape language, these basic concepts of how to make people feel things with designs and images. And there's a lot of process there. And again, it's that stuff that is really getting people employed and really making them the money. The art needs to get to a certain level, which is certainly quite high, and it's a big challenge to get to that level. But I don't think it's probably as large as you might imagine if you're just starting out and you're sort of looking at who are like the top 5 artists on ArtStation or Instagram who work at, insert top 5 companies like Blizzard and Riot. And, those are the ones that people normally mention, right? It's like, who are the top people there? Forget about that, right? Again, that's not really representative of, again, the work those actual people are doing day to day, and also the wide variety of artists who are, gainfully employed in those industries, just doing, mostly sort of production level concept art. Again, there's a lot of work there, relatively speaking. And, the thing that will get you that work is not always having the highest quality of art. It's, again, having a good foundation, good ability to be flexible, and also understanding how your art is useful within that production environment. So a good example there would be that if we're designing characters, again, what you often imagine is that as a concept artist, they're just kind of designing any old character they want, and they're really sort of good at designing these cool emotive characters. And often those processes are laborious, and it's not the main character you're designing, it's these NPC, the non-player characters that you're designing, especially early on. And your job there, again, is kind of, how do I make this interesting? How do we provide value to the player? The player wants to see cool non-player characters. They want those characters to be designed really well. And it does add a huge amount of value if, the boxes and the leaves and the trees and the compositions for the environments and all those little things, if those things have love and attention into them, it makes the overall game project have a lot more value. You don't notice this, but again, it does make the game better. And so there's a lot of jobs there. There's a lot of stuff there that you can do. It's not always about, AAA concept art, hero, right? The design there and understanding that and how to sort of make stuff interesting and, meet a brief, make your art functional in a video game or, animation or film environment. Again, a lot of that stuff is actually menial production work, but it's very fun, and there's a lot of craft sort of aspect to it, and can be very rewarding. And again, it is a good way to get a career, to actually get, a salary that's quite decent doing art. So again, just another example of how the thing that I think makes the money and sort of gets you a career and a job, etc., if that's sort of what you want, is often the design and understanding the functionality of your art and how to make sure that the things you're creating actually go into a project and make it better. And again, in a similar way, I think the people who get really, really good at those jobs and do become those sort of concept art heroes are people who are good at understanding the brief, understanding the functionality. And again, they've built a solid foundation and a really good visual library, good understanding of shape design, how to manipulate emotions through, practical alterations of the art. Is that they're the ones who, will progress even further because they're able to understand the functionality and inject a lot of their personality into the work. And, that's where, again, the art is functional, it's serving a need, but it's also really, really good. And again, mixing those is obviously best, but the thing that will get your foot in the door is the design. And I think it's why often people misunderstand a lot of these concept art, and illustration sort of jobs. The thing that will, make you good and get you money and really get the ball rolling is understanding the design, right? It's not drawing better anatomy or better sort of fancy stuff and, improving your drawing and rendering to the nth degree. That stuff's important, but design is what actually pays. All right, so again, that's a pretty simple little concept, but just something I want to share with you. As I said, I don't want to make this some sort of big pontification on art versus design. I just think that that distinction and understanding is really important to get if you're either stuck in your career or you're just figuring out like, how on earth do I make money drawing? What's the easiest way? Again, I think I'm not talking here about how to become rich or amazingly sort of popular with your art. I'm just talking about the nuts and bolts of what tends to move the needle when it comes to making a salary, making a decent amount of money where you can actually sort of live on it. Again, it's often the design. That's what I think is the most important thing to focus on early on, because again, even if you do get a really good job, often the design stuff is the thing that trips people up, is understanding, again, like, I'm a really good artist, but how do I even get that happening? How do I make that happen in the job I've got? And a lot of people struggle with that. So really thinking about that, and as I talk about in that mini illustration workshop, starting to build a lot of your processes early on so that they do consider production workflow, and so you can easily and comfortably involve people within your illustration process, again, is a really, really good way to set yourself up for success in that instance. So anyway, that's all I've got. Let me know if you've got any comments or other suggestions, whether that makes sense or not. But other than that, catch you around. Happy drawing.